Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, the podcast about myths and history. Cammy, happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome back.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
It's a great day to be releasing a podcast. The stars aligned. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and it's the day we put up our shows every Wednesday morning, where we talk about myths and legends, like this funky dude, St. Patrick. Now, we have a very special live show. So, we're not live show. We recorded a video with one of our very special fans and friends, Debbie, who has helped us with Irish Tales. She herself is from Ireland and she's Irish. Really wonderful person, great storyteller. And she joined us for a fun discussion in general. This was a very just fun talk. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. So please do. And you'll be able to see this too. So it's kind of a double whammy for your St. Patrick's Wednesday. Now, that's what we're talking about today, right, Cammy? Is this man himself, right?
Yes.
And he's pretty mythical and legendary, despite being like a religious figurehead. I mean, that doesn't like stop you from being it, but this guy's pretty wacky. That's and my research. So I did a little bit more from when we did the show with Debbie. And
okay.
It just gets wilder. This dude's just a crazy man. Yeah. It's so fun. I've been really enjoying this, and I'm really excited to talk about it a little bit here. But I know you've got a story, as you always do. So please hit us with that St. Patrick story.
Sure. So I actually used what I believe to be an American website for this. I didn't use Celtic wedding rings.
Celtic wedding rings? No, damn it.
So it's the Smith Appleby House Museum, and each year they do a huge St. Patrick's Day parade, or I don't know, like festival.
Bonanza.
And like Debbie was saying, the Irish actually took St. Patrick's Day from us because we do it up so much. So
yeah,
if you want to check out the website at smithappleby.org. Patrick began his life with miracles. When he was just a baby, he gave sight back to a blind man by creating the sign of a cross with his hands. When he was a teen, the would-be saint was kidnapped by slave traders and taken to Ireland. When he was there, he was introduced to Christianity and prayed for his freedom as part of his nightly ritual. One night, the angels heard his prayers and brought to him a gift in the form of a vision. The angels showed him where to find a treasure that would be enough to buy his freedom. The next day, he woke up early and went to retrieve the buried gold. Since he was now a free man, he decided to become a priest in service to the God who gave him his liberty. During his time as a priest, and later bishop, he would cure the dead and bring them back to life. He followed the path of Jesus in this and other forms, like turning water into honey. He vowed to bring the pagans of Ireland to the ways of his God, and used the shamrock to describe the Trinity to them. Though the shamrock is but one entity, it has three parts, like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. When Patrick was getting along in years, he decided to spend 40 days in the wilderness fasting, like Jesus did. When he was there, demons came to him in the form of slithering beasts. But by his fate, the man was able to ward them off until the 40th day. He was surrounded, and he began to ring a silver bell he brought with him on the journey. When the air filled with the sound of this bell, the snakes began to retreat. They could still hear it even when they cleared the woods and began to head towards the town. They heard it still when they crossed the hills and fields, until it drove the snakes mad. They knew their only retreat was to drown themselves in the sea, so they might escape this horrible sound forever.
That's one hell of a dog whistle.
Right?
Gee, silver bell.
Yeah, some accounts say it was like a drum.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking like, would he have access to a silver bell?
I don't know.
I wonder.
I mean, he found all that gold.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really cool. So St. Patrick, I think everyone understands he's very intertwined with Irish culture and this day to celebrate him. It's March 17th, which is the supposed date of his death. It is celebrated inside and outside Ireland as a religious and cultural holiday. And in Ireland, the diocese, it's sort of a day of solemnity and a holy day of obligation, and celebrates Ireland itself. So it's a really cool, encompassing thing. And the fun thing about it, or kind of the ironic thing, is St. Patrick isn't Irish, really. Not really like defined that way. He would have seen himself as Romano-British, which is really important. And it's really timely. So I've mentioned a handful of times on this show. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, driving and cleaning and cooking around the house and stuff. And I've been listening to a few of the great courses selections that are available. I listen for free through Hoopla, through linking my library card. Do it if you really should. It's great. And I'm listening to this great one. It's called King Arthur: History and Legend by this great historian, Dorsey Armstrong. And she does a really fun explanation. We've actually talked about King Arthur before. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because she really clarified this for me. And it's so relevant to this time period of when he was around. And that's because, the Romans settled, they kind of came into England around 43, 55 BC, but they were out by 410 AD, and which is essentially when people say the western half fell. So that's 400 years that Roman influence had over the British Islands. And which, Dorsey, she does great. She realizes or reminds us that that's longer than how long America has been around. But yet, we have such a strong American culture. So you can think the Romans come, they bring their religion, Christianity,
their roads and their water sources.
Exactly. Yeah. Their beautiful like architecture, and they imprint that on people. And that's extremely lasting. And in fact, Patrick, his father and grandfather were heavily involved in the church, and he was sort of supposed to be involved in that too. Now, I mainly took from like Wikipedia and Britannica, and they did a great job of really summing things up. What's cool is we do have some awesome. I mention this all the time. One awesome thing Christianity did, especially around the Middle Ages, is write stuff down. It was just one of the parts of the religion that was so important. Just write stuff down. And Patrick himself wrote stuff down. He wrote an autobiography called the Confessio. And so, he was literate, especially being from the family he was in. So we have this work, the Confessio, and so I try to make clear where the sources come from. It's him. He is the source. So it's really cool. And there was a lot of writing about him later. I'll note that he wasn't actually like formally canonized because he lived prior to the laws of how canonization works. So being a saint and stuff like that. But I think the church is okay with him being called a saint. So again, Romano-British, that means you're sort of, if you're British, if you're someone who was indigenous to the British Islands, so before the Romans came, you're there. This is kind of like Celtic. This is the Celtic people, but you could be, we might identify you as Welsh, Irish, Scottish, any of those kind of crazy things, right? And so that's what he was, but he had those roots, but then with the distinct Romanization of it all. And it's very clear because of his later works as a saint. So yeah, apparently he writes himself, captured by Irish pirates at 16, 6 years he worked as a herdsman. Get that? Shepherd, get it? And then he's like has a dream of being able to escape, and he flees. And then apparently during that, he's apparently like recaptured a little bit, and nearly starves to death and all this stuff. So it was pretty intense, him getting out of there. But then, Confessio is really where we get everything, and it looked like it was written near the end of his life. Now, the timeline, like most people believe he was born in the middle of the 5th century, so around 450 AD, so a good 40 years after the Romans left. But, when the Romans left, it was remarkably, like, shocking how quickly they left. But it wasn't, like, the imprint of the culture didn't truly leave 100% until later. But during this time period, it was tumultuous, and for some reason, he writes in his Confessio that he had an idea of going back to Ireland, And so I wrote in my notes, he came back with a vengeance to convert, and he got revenge on those pirates by literally converting. And he did some really great work, and he was very careful with pagans and pagan rites and religions and the chieftains. I mean, his life seems to have been at risk like constantly, and he brought gifts to the places he went, but he never took the gifts. I mean, he really seemed like a great icon for this. And there's some or not confusion. There's some theories. There's this guy Palladius who came around 20 years before. He was sent by the Pope, this guy Palladius, and people sometimes, like historians, argue that they were either the same person or that Palladius was actually the one who did all this. So it's a little foggy, but it kind of seems that it's clear that Palladius was kind of sent, like I think it was 423 or 413, and he kind of like started the groundwork of Christianizing Ireland, but then it was Patrick who came in and really did it. And he famously used the shamrock to teach the Holy Trinity. You know, it was these weird concepts you're trying to explain, and it's saying this like the shamrock, you've got the stem, and then you've got these three parts. They're all one and the same, but there's distinct parts on each bit. So it seems really cool to me that he was able to sort of do that. Now, there's of course the legends. He himself wrote that he raised people from the dead. A 12th century hagiography, which is like writing on saints, specifically numbers 33 people were raised from the dead. So I don't know how.
That's a lot.
I mean,
isn't that how old Jesus was when he died or something?
He was in his 30s. Yeah, good point. Oh my God, Cammy, look at you. Hagiographist over here. And yeah, it's just really interesting. And one interesting legend was that I hadn't seen before was that he apparently like rooted his walking stick in the ground at one point and like left it for a little while, and then it started to grow, like it took root, and he like stabbed in the ground and then it rooted and then grew in a tree. What was really notable for me was this story, this little tale was mentioned in Dorsey Armstrong's lecture of King Arthur, and it's kind of connected to Arthur. So this again kind of brings me back to a theme that we've discussed a lot of Irish and Britannic paganism being intertwined with Christianity, and how like it's hard to completely erase parts of like tales and cultural stories and things like that, just to erase them. So they kind of get altered. And so I'm this seems like it could be a clear story of like, oh, did you hear about the dude, the famous guy with a walking stick that grew into a tree? Oh yeah, that was St. Patrick. He was the dude that made all the snakes go away. Which that's really funny. The snake thing is really funny because there's like Roman historians, Gaius Julius Silenus notes the lack of snakes in like the British Islands. So like people were like, why aren't there snakes here? Like, this is really weird.
Actually, do you know why there aren't snakes there?
No.
During the last glacial period, I'm not going to pretend like I know what that means, but I'm guessing sure. It's like an ice age. Ireland was still underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So when snakes were coming out, finding places to live and all this stuff,
walking from the ocean,
couldn't get to a place underwater.
Yeah, that makes sense. The
and note so they just weren't there to begin with.
Right, and that's the note I have, is that Irish fossil records and others suggest no snakes post-glacial period. So that would make sense, that the makeup of all things, that's how it would work. And that totally makes sense. They just couldn't get there. I just love that had to be attributed to someone for some reason like that.
When I was reading on it, so I read his confessions, the thing you were talking about, and he doesn't talk about it. And then I read like someone else's writing, and they were like, hey, what if we attribute no snakes being there to St. Patrick? And they were like, that's dumb. There were never snakes here. Like,
that's funny.
So it was like a discussion at the time.
Have you ever seen a snake and St. Patrick in the same room? Yeah. It's fun. I'll plug Bernard Cornwell's Last Kingdom series for the umpteenth time, because there's a great Irish main character in it, Finnan, and he's like an Irish Christian where he still has these like deep roots to the Irish culture, like paganism, but he's a devout Christian. And I can't help but think about that. And this was set in the year 900, you know, so close yet so different. It's just so funny how saints too, how they're regarded, the miracles that they've done, even the Roman, you know, ones in the Mediterranean, the Roman saints. I love it. I just love these stories and how they're used the way they are. But I just felt like, aside from the snake stuff, I just feel like Patrick is very practical, you know. One last thing I have is a cool idea that from Wikipedia. It's the abduction reinterpreted. So this is you know, Patrick's own account. Irish raiders brought him to Ireland, enslaved and captive for 6 years. So there's another interpretation that suggests that as the son of a decurion, he would have been obliged by Roman law to serve on the town council, the curia, but chose instead to abscond from the onerous obligations, man, these are great words, y'all, write them down, of this office by fleeing abroad, as many others in his positions had done in what has become known as the flight of the Curialis. This, I think he's a historian, Roy Fletchner asserts the improbability of an escape from this, you know, idea. And so his return is more of like I went to Ireland to kind of just get away from my duties. I shepherded for a little while and I was like, this is pretty cool. And Ireland's pretty messed up and I should leave and then come back. So I think that's cool. That goes into the euhemeristic sort of ideas of things, where it was sort of played up even by himself in his confessions. He might have played it up a little bit, like,
oh yeah, because he kept saying like, oh, I can't leave, like, even though God is telling me to leave, I can't leave this land. There are too many.
That could be a way of sort of in the vernacular of the time, the way he writes, the way he wrote. It just might have been a way of kind of saying like he wanted, and it is mentioned that he definitely wanted to shirk his Christian kind of heritage, his Romano-British Christianization. He wasn't into that. It wasn't until this period where he was captive. So this just might be a metaphor for his transformation of being like a 16-year-old kid who just wants to dick around, goes to Ireland for 6 years. You're in your early 20s and you're like, man, everyone lives to like 30 and they're all dead and stuff. I might want to do something with my life, you know. And then it goes. And again, the practicality of it all, he comes back, probably like is like, all right, I'm going to actually start doing what I'm supposed to do, learn what I need to learn. I'm already educated, and then goes back with a great heart in it, knows Ireland. I mean, it just makes sense. And so I agree. I don't think you'd just be able to like flee abduction. And you know, he was in a pretty high status household. I mean, England was sort of famous, or the British Islands were famously like the mainland, like Romans as they stood after the fall, were like, sorry, bro, you're on your own. But there was still an infrastructure there. So really cool, a lot more to it. But it's also very like deceptively simple that I really like. Patrick, he was in his essence, if you take away sort of the more mythical aspects of him, he went to Ireland, worked hard, respected the pagans, the chieftains, the war bands, and he went through all of that to just literally dig deep the roots of Christianity that clearly set, and as we can see, for the next 1,000 years, 1,500 years. So Cammy, excellent work on your story.
Thank you,
always
Bryant.
appreciate them. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, we really do hope you have a great St. Patrick's Day. Check out the video we did with Debbie. It was super fun. She's very awesome. We're definitely going to work with her again soon. Follow us on YouTube. Like us on Instagram. Join our Facebook group. Feel free to chat me in Discord. We're in all of these places. Please tell your friends and family about us. Spread the word. Cammy and I are really happy to do this. We've got lots planned. So stay tuned with us. Mythstorie.com. We'll take you to all of our links, but you can also reach out to us directly at mythstorie@gmail.com. Threadless.mythstorie.com, mythstorie.threadless.com. One of them too, right?
Mythstorie.threadless.com.
Us first, yeah. If you want to get a shirt, there you go. Yeah, we've got our ticker at the bottom of our YouTube video, mythstorie.threadless.com. So everyone, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Oh.